Touré is to hip hop, black media, and black culture as Diane Sawyer was to world news. Touré has more than solidified himself as an overall rounded spokesperson when it comes to issues within the black community, hip hop, and America. Even with that kind of resume, Diddy still tried it. Damn. I'll be back. Hello, everyone. Let's get on with this. I did not stumble across this article. Someone shared it with me, someone close to me, and I said, hey, let's do this. So let's get on with it. Throughout the years, more people have grown to respect Touré as a proper, credible analyst just on life in this country than not. So for Diddy to treat Touré's relative as he did, allegedly, to me that shows that Diddy routinely demonstrated how he felt untouchable and how he didn't care about maintaining and respecting a professional business relationship he's had with people he's known for years. As previously stated, Touré is a very well-known and rounded person in media, mass communications, yet and still Diddy tried it with Touré's relative. That's insane. Touré was born March 20th, 1971. He is an American writer, music journalist, cultural critic, podcaster, and television personality. Touré was born Touré Neblett in Boston on March 20th, 1971. As I said, his father is Roy E. Neblett, was an accountant and a member of the personal staff of Boston Mayor Kevin White. Touré's parents met while Roy was studying at Suffolk University Law School. His mother, Patricia, also worked at the Neblett accounting firm. Touré's parental grandparents were immigrants to Harlem from Barbados and British Virgin Islands. I wonder why they didn't mention his maternal grandparents. That's neither here nor there. Let's go on. While a student at Emory University, Touré founded a black student newspaper, The Fire This Time. Touré began his writing career as an intern at Rolling Stone in '92. He's done TV shows like The Psycho, and he served on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominating committee. He taught a course on the history of hip-hop at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music. Touré is the author of several books, including The Portable Promised Land, 2003, Soul City, 2005, Who's Afraid of Post-Blackness? What It Means to Be Black Now, 2011, just to name a few. He was subsequently hired as CNN's first pop culture respondent. In 2005, BET hired Touré to cover BET News and public affairs programming. Touré criticized and debated with Piers Morgan over the latter's March 2020 interview with George Zimmerman's brother, particularly over what Touré saw as Morgan's lack of response to Robert Zimmerman's problematic replies. In August 2012, as part of a discussion on The Cycle, Touré claimed Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney had engaged in racial coding by calling President Barack Obama angry and referred to this as a Negroization. Touré apologized for using the word the next day. In 2014, Touré drew criticism from the Simon Wiesenthal Center for implying Holocaust survivors seceded in the U.S. after the Second World War because they were white. A blogger from the website Yo, That's Racist tweeted at Touré, "My family survived a concentration camp, came to the U.S. with nothing legally and made it work." To which Touré replied, "The power of whiteness." Touré later apologized for his comments, saying, in an attempt to comment on racism in post-WW2 America, "I used a shorthand that was insensitive and wrong." I mean, okay, when will people have a real discussion about the tragedy of the Holocaust that occurred off of American soil and the repercussions of slavery which occurred on American soil, still that those who are called Black American are still forced to deal with today? See what I'm saying? A tragedy occurred off of this soil, a tragedy occurred on this soil, and it continues.
Anyone?
You know, it didn't stop. Ooh, okay, slavery stopped, so we're going to stop. It never stopped. Let's continue. So now I want to read this article, and I will give my input about the article when it's finished. Let's continue. Touré is exposing some of Sean Diddy Combs' alleged crime. Diddy has been dealing with a lot of drug abuse for about 15 years. He's been dealing with a world where he is surrounded by enablers, Touré told host Chris Cuomo. "A lot of people have told me the folks who might say no to him have been pushed out of the circle, out of the entourage, and he's surrounded by enablers and people who won't say no to him and people who won't say, hey, let's rethink that decision. He's surrounded by people just yes men and women. This includes his attorneys." Touré shared how he has a close family member who worked for Sean and saw his abuse firsthand. "I was able to get them into Diddy's internship program, the Bad Boy internship program, because I knew him well enough to call him and say, hey, can you do a favor for my family, right? We were not friends, but we had a professional relationship going over many years," the journalist began. Touré explained the internship went well for 3 months until things took a turn for the worse. Everybody was very excited about it, and then it ended suddenly, and years later I found out that was because Diddy had said either come home with me tonight or the internship is over, the reporter revealed. That is horrific. How do you treat people like that? Especially family of media who could easily get on media and talk about this. And at the time, I didn't think that anyone would have believed me, but now that you know him doing much worse things, the story sounds totally believable, he shared. Sean's indictment also uncovered many illegal activities allegedly went on during the rapper's FO parties. Touré claimed individuals he's close to have opened up about what really went on behind closed doors. Many people told me that he drugged them or drugged people around him that they saw. He really liked drugging people and thus incapacitating them through giving them drugs, the author explained. And the I'll Be Missing You singer would allegedly disguise the drugs by telling victims, here, take a shot or have a joint. They don't know what's in it, just really horrific stuff. We're talking about Diddy drugging people and having them have multi-day situations on drugs. They're not able to consent. There's just horrific stuff going on here, Touré added. Touré says he has had off-the-record conversations with people who've known Diddy for decades. They worked around him. They partied around him. They are people I trust to give me an unbiased view of him. They're not speaking anonymously because they have an axe to grind. They're giving their perspective on a story they lived through. The fall of a generational icon, Sean Combs. Generational icon. You know how heavy that is, how big that is to have fallen? Let's go on. People said he had changed over time and grew into the monster we've heard about. Some said the last time I saw him, there was nothing behind his eyes but a vapid darkness. Diddy's perpetual drug haze meant he could not even remember some of the women who've sued him in recent months. He's getting lawsuits and he can't recall who's who, someone said. This person said they did not recognize the Diddy they used to know. He's been super high and detached from himself for years, this person said. He hasn't acted like himself in years. There were multiple interventions. They all failed. No one could protect him from himself. And you think that when people get high like that, you think they're getting high to cover up dark things in their mind? Like maybe dark things they've done, or dark things they know about, or dark things they witness other people do? Because our minds weren't built to handle that kind of wickedness, that kind of sickness, that kind of perversion. You know what I'm saying? Let's go on. Drug abuse is a driving force of this chapter of Diddy's life. It's central to why he's now facing a mountain of serious charges. When Diddy and Cassie were together, he dragged Cassie down into addiction. After she left him, someone said she went to rehab to get control of her life, which led to a process of healing. Not just the drugs, but the abuse. From there, she found the courage to speak up. Cassie told Diddy that she'd written a book and demanded he paid $30 million for it. He refused to pay, a colossal mistake on his part, which opened him up to her story becoming much larger. Someone said he didn't have the foresight to give Cassie what she wanted, and if he had, we wouldn't be having this conversation with him in prison. People said he made that mistake in judgment because he was perpetually high. He did not have the proper perspective on the world because he was not in his right mind. He paid up, but only after Cassie's lawsuit became public. By then, it was too late. $30 million was a bargain compared to the massive price he would eventually pay. Cassie's suit alerted federal prosecutors, who ended up indicting Diddy and putting him in prison, possibly for the rest of his life. People who know Diddy say he's been very difficult to be around for a long time. Someone said he's a sociopath for sure. Another said he's a wannabe thug who became a sexual deviant, who became wildly rich, who became an addict. Another said he's an ego-driven, hedonistic sexual deviant with no interior life. Another said there's no substance in his life. It's all about self-promotion. All he cares about is what other people think of him. Another said he's a strategic, conniving hustler, selfish a-hole. Another, he didn't think he had to listen to anyone who had any less money than him, and the more money he made, the less he listened. Man, that was on point. All of those things people allegedly said about him is completely on point. A theory about why Diddy grew into the sexual monster he became is that he was taught by Russell Simmons in the 1990s when Diddy was settling in to being a wealthy superstar mogul. Simmons, then the head of Red Hot Def Jam Records, was already a wealthy superstar mogul. And he, along with Andre Harrell, the head of Uptown Records, and L.A. Reid, the head of LaFace, showed him how it's done. Didn't I say that? In the video I did called The Three Puppet Masters, something like that, I had said that he learned it, Diddy learned it from someone or someone's. Let's continue. Simmons especially set an example for what the elite moneymaker lifestyle was supposed to look like. Part of that was sexual. Simmons was known to regularly host orgies at his home, and we all know the many other crimes he's accused of. Simmons showed Diddy that the wealthy superstar mogul life included wild ass. Diddy took that much further. Russell taught Diddy how to do it and Puff supercharged it, someone said. Puff took what Russ was doing and flipped it, revised it, added video, and made it darker. Puff turned it into an operation. I said he learned it. Why you think he was able to do it for over 30 years? And the people who taught him was most likely still participating in it as well. Let's continue. Simmons surely showed Diddy that their status allowed them to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. Simmons did not hide how wild his world was. I remember being at a lunch with him and others in the Hamptons one summer. His date that afternoon for a casual Hamptons lunch with 7 to 8 adults from the entertainment and journalism worlds was a shy, skinny model named Kamora Lee. She was 16 years old. He made no attempt to hide that. The first time I met Simmons was to interview him for The Source. We met at Time Cafe in Manhattan, a restaurant that was a 1-minute walk from his apartment. When I got there, Simmons was sitting with Brett Ratner, then a video director, and a gorgeous woman who was a model. As Simmons and I talked, Ratner and the woman disappeared. I expected that. Interviews don't usually have an audience. After about 20 minutes, Ratner returned to the table looking like he had showered. I didn't think anything of it, but a moment later, Simmons unceremoniously disappeared. I remember turning my head and he was gone, and I didn't know why. The interview had paused. I was stuck talking to Brett Ratner about his favorite subject. Brett Ratner forced to listen because I was waiting for Simmons to come back. I kept saying, "Where did Russell go?" Ratner kept telling me his life story. After about 20 minutes, Simmons returned and it looked like he showered. I later learned that each of them had left our table so they could take turns with the model in Simmons' apartment as the others spoke with me. Simmons' brazen, overt sexual deviance was a message to Diddy that this is how we live at this level. That would be combined with Diddy's ability to throw parties that eventually created the thing now known as Diddy parties. For some younger millennials who think of Diddy as someone nefarious, the term Diddy party has become inherently triggering, as if all Diddy parties were FOs. Far from it. Diddy's first big splash in New York City was a party promoter. Before he made it A&R at Uptown, he knew how to take over clubs, create themes, shape spaces, market his events, and get hundreds or thousands of people to show up. He was widely known as the best party thrower in the industry. But in the 90s, these were often PG-rated events. Many people would get drunk and stand on tables, but I went to many puffy parties that were nothing close to a FO. I went to a white party in the Hamptons that I could have brought my kids to. I went to his 40th birthday party at Cipriani's and saw tons of stars, including Muhammad Ali. But I think over time, his power grew and his urge to throw parties remained, and the billionaire's imperative to do things that are farther and farther away, the norm kicked in, like going to the moon or visiting the Titanic. That led him to pushing his parties further and further into bizarre world. Some said L.A. Reid was also a key mentor as another of the wealthy celebrities execs who taught Puff the ropes of moguldom. Someone said Reid sent 2 teenage artists, Usher and Justin Bieber, to Puffy to learn and pick up his unique brand of flavor. Both of these artists became superstars, so Puff was first groomed by his mentors, Russell, Andre, and L.A., to be the decadent and worse. Then he was enabled by the same mentors to take it to the next generation. Some say another key moment in Diddy's life may have come in the early 90s when Suge Knight burst into Andre Harrell's office at Uptown and bullied him and humiliated him. He was already building Bad Boy But he was still close to Harrell, and Knight's aggressive attack was deeply triggering. When he heard about the attack, he said, "That'll never be me." He had to ensure that he would never be punked by Knight or anyone else. Losing face like that could cost you everything. So he built a wall around him by hiring serious men from the street to come into his operation. At first, they were protecting him, but in time, it would grow into a problem. One of them ended up getting into a fight with Knight at a strip club in Atlanta and then shot one of Knight's guys. That moment, far more than the Vibe cover, pushed the Death Row Bad Boy beef to a level that no one could turn back from. As that beef spiraled downward, Diddy was afraid for his life. He was concerned that Knight or Pac might try to kill him. He may have been thinking, "I should kill one of them before they kill me," someone said. He was truly concerned that they would kill him. If he felt like his life was in danger, I would not be surprised by anything he'd do. Was he capable of doing it? Yes. Was he depraved enough to do it? Yes. I asked someone, can you imagine Diddy in prison, who cares deeply about what others think of him, is suddenly the lowest in society? This man who's known nothing but luxury and power for decades suddenly has the worst living environment imaginable and zero status. But people who know him think Diddy will learn how to live in prison. I'll tell you what he's doing. He's figuring out who he's got to deal with for protection and how to set that up. He's a survivor. He'll find his way. He's a leader of men, and he thinks about things in a way that others can't, which makes people trust him and want to follow him. I'm not sure if Diddy's social skills would carry him far in prison, but who knows? This is the wild life story of a sort we usually only see in the movies. As I try to think of a Rosebud sort of moment, I'm remembering the story about young Sean being jealous that his neighbor had a pool and he did not. His response was to create a newspaper route, as in to be a kid who delivered people's newspapers in the morning, and then to buy other kids' routes so that he owned several routes and had other kids working for him. That's fine, that's capitalism. But this is a guy who defined himself by what he had, and the feeling of having less than others drove him to need more. His rapid ascent up through the music industry was fueled by his need to have more than others, more than anyone else. Diddy was the kid of conspicuous consumption because he was showing you, look at me, I got wealth, I got more than you. His music isn't about anything but having a good time and extolling him. His brand, before it became all about sexual deviance, was about nothing but making money. He wanted to be superior, the one with more money, better clothes, bigger houses, and better parties. What that last thing meant changed over time to become darker and darker and darker. I'm honoring whoever wrote this article, whether it was Touré or a staff writer in his under his umbrella. It was superb. Let me get on with my conclusion. I've been saying, if you have looked at the videos I've done about Diddy since all this started, you would last year. I said these things. I said he was trained. He was showed how to do this, and then here you go, boom. L.A. Reid, Russell, and Harrell gave him the license. Say, hey, you rich, you famous, you can do whatever the hell you want to, and it don't matter what people think. And that's the attitude he has. He can do whatever he wants to, and he believes that money is the end all be all. It's not. And I know there's a lot of people who think that way, and that is so sad. That is so sad that you think that. That is, oh my God, that is so sad. When some people think that money is the end all be all, but they have to find out the hard way that it's not. All his money and fame has gotten him nowhere but in jail, waiting to go to court. And then while he's going to court, he has to deal with everything being brought back to his memory. The foulest, most depraved, disgusting, disturbing things is coming back to hunt him, and he can't do anything about it. I'm sure that's driving him crazy. Used to being, he's a person that was in control of everything. His money spoke volumes, and now he can't do anything about it. That's driving him crazy. So money is not the end all be all, folks. It's not. You guys don't know how long I've been waiting for this to come out, about Diddy, about the people that have encouraged him, about the people who was getting down and dirty and filthy with him. I've been waiting so long for this because I always knew something wasn't right. I just knew it. And then back in the day, the 90s, when he was high and black music was high and they was all up on the moon, you couldn't tell them ish. You couldn't tell them nothing. They were famous and they were rich, or we thought they were rich. You couldn't tell them nothing. So when somebody else come out and be like out the blue, like, man, there's something about them. People look at you like you's crazy. Oh, you just hating. You just jealous. They rich and famous. What you talking about? But it was always something there in the back of my mind. Like, something ain't right. And look how long it took to come out. Look how long it took the truth to come out. That is what's in the Bible. What is done in the dark always comes out to the... Okay, I can go on and on. Let's shut up shop. Thank you guys. Those who made it this far, I appreciate you. And I don't just say the words, I mean it. Because life and death is in the power of the tongue. So if I'm saying I appreciate you, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, I mean it. They're not just words. Thank you again. Be safe out there. And I will see you in the next video.